Hi everybody, it's Irene at BrainStormAcres, and today I am going to reconstitute these two wicking totes and replant them. Now, if you have been following us, you would recognize this tote as our main source of radishes for the last couple of years. I just kept this thing planted in radishes for Henry all the time. I picked the rest of them this morning. They were still fine, but we were getting towards the end of the cycle, shall we say. A couple of them had bolted. So, what I need to do, and this one here was lettuce mostly, a couple of cabbages on the edges. There's still one little cabbage over there. I'm going to let him stay there for now. He was planted there fairly recently, so we'll see how he does. If he does great, great. If not, bye and thanks for all the fish. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to take some bone meal, sprinkle a little of that into both of these, add a little bit of potting soil, and then once the plants are in here, I'm going to water them in with a little bit of, we call it fish juice, fish fertilizer. It's a 511. Makes it smell kind of like rotten seaweed in here, but that's okay. The plants really like it. It's a gentle sort of a thing. It's not going to burn anything. It's going to help them get situated. So let me get some of this. These two totes are going to turn into cucumber boxes, and I'm going to string them up to the ceiling. I did this last year in here at the end of the year, and it worked pretty darn well actually. Everything eventually froze, but that's what happens in the fall, unless you have a really well heated greenhouse, because cucumbers are very sensitive to cold. So eventually they did freeze, but we got several cucumbers off of there, and it was fun. It was a crazy experiment. I would definitely do it again. So let's see what we got here. I want to add some new potting soil into the top of it, because some of these boxes were done, these wicking totes were done with mostly compost, and while it seemed like a good idea at the time, the compost does not have quite as much water retention capability as I would prefer. It could use more it could use more something like a peat moss or something in it. As a result, it tends to shrink, kind of a pain in the butt. So I figure every time I remake one of these totes, I'm stirring in a bunch more potting soil on the top. The ones that I've already done, it seems to be making a big difference. So that's my theory. I'm sticking with it. Hopefully you guys can hear me over the fan. I turned down most of the fans, but I can't turn off everything or I will melt. It was 126 degrees in here earlier, so I sort of postponed this to the end of the day. I had hoped to get it done hours and hours ago, but I was not willing to kill myself to get it done. I don't want to mess this guy up. Nothing wrong with him. I'm being kind of probably a bit generous by keeping him in there. I probably should have just yanked him out of there too, but he's not really in the way, so we'll see what happens. I hadn't thought this out before I did this. I was going to not move this, and then I realized it's a bad location, so we'll move everything. I'm going to move these, let's see, those two containers farther down here. The reason being, there's a purlin here. Now, a purlin is one of these support beams on the ceiling, and what that purlin will allow me to do is support reels the same as on the hydroponics, where we have the tomatoes supported by reels from the roof. See, they are also attached to a purlin. So lining this up with a purlin will make it so much easier than if I do something else. So let's get this organized. And there we go. So time to move buckets. Now, these buckets have not been watered today. Well, a little bit, but they haven't been deep soaked today. So they're pretty light. And that was actually one of the thoughts I had when I started this whole process. Okay. There we go. Now, get the other guy over here too. Oh, now this, on the other hand, it's full of water. I can tell. Oops. Yeah, I can't move that. Okay. This is an old bucket too. That's a bad combination. Well, I guess we're postponing that project. This one, however, I will finish. I'm going to have to actually let that other one dry out. Either that or figure a way to just kind of rig it over there, and it's too far over to the wall, so that's not going to work. Trials and tribulations. I didn't think about it. Oh well. There we go. There's this guy. And I don't have to have it directly underneath. I can bring the plants up like this. It's not a giant problem. But I do want pretty easy access. So I'm going to put 3, 4. I think I'm going to put 4 cucumbers in here. It's a little crowded, but it's not the end of the world. I can always change my mind. Now these are all jade cucumbers. Now the cool thing about jade cucumbers is that all the flowers are female. If most regular cucumbers, well, there's a couple of different kinds of plants. Some have both male and female. Some have just female. Some have just male. You know, it's very confusing. Anyway, these guys don't need males. They are already self-fertile, I guess you'd say. I think the fancy word for that is gaseous. But what that means is I don't have to plant, if I plant certain kinds of cucumbers, I have to make sure that there's a male, because the plants only produce females, and if I don't do that, I don't get any fruit, which is the whole purpose of growing cucumbers. So I like these guys because I don't have to worry about things like that. They're self-contained, if you will. It's kind of like having a self-fertile tree that you don't require any cross-pollination on. So these guys do have some thrip damage, but that was mostly when they were a baby. I will be watching them to see if we develop any new problems. I did see one of my favorite creatures in the yard today, which was flea beetles. And I was like, really? It's not even June and we have flea beetles. So I'm going to have to drag out my spray and start working on that, because that's a no-no. Hi, what are you? You don't want to be an unidentified bug around here. 3 in the back, 2 up front. Let's see what happens. Worst case, I hate it. I won't ever do it again. I think these guys are going to be very happy. They absolutely went crazy as soon as I put them in the pots. And while that's awesome, they're obviously a little bit pot bound now, so it's time to give them a larger place to live. I do love how sturdy these guys are. Even if they did get some thrip damage, they are at least really, you know, like sometimes you wind up with these scrawny looking unhealthy things that These guys, like I say, except for the thrip damage, look great. Henry loves jade cucumbers. I don't eat cucumbers, particularly, not unless I'm under duress in general. Once we have some cucumbers, I'll have to make some tsunamono someday and show folks how I do it. Super easy. It's just a fresh cucumber, that's all. Takes a couple of hours to be ready to eat, and that's it. That is the purlin, and what I'm doing right now is I'm getting loops of string over the top of the purlin in a slip knot so that I can just tie stuff up to it. Then I can put these guys on there. You can use these over and over again. You can even buy replacement string if you need to. I am sure eventually the string will croak. But all I have to do is squeeze this like that, and it unrolls string. Then I have clips, which I will use to attach the string to the cucumbers. I am actually using clips like they use in a greenhouse. Here's the rollers. Here's extra string in case I needed to make another loop. And these are the clips that we use for clipping on the string. Now, some of these have been used, and I noticed a couple of them are broken, which is one of the joys of plastic, but that's just what happens. Okay, so the way this works is, get a piece of string just to show it. The hinge here has got little tabs. The string is going to go into the hinge, it's going to close, and the plant's going to be in there. It's just going to support it. Now this one's an older one, so it broke when I closed it. Twink. So I know I'm going to have a few of these that were used from last year croak, and that's okay. I expected that. My understanding from some of the professionals that use these is that the solid color ones hold up better than the clear ones. When I was originally looking for them, the only ones I could find were the clear ones. There we go. Ta-da! Okay. And that's all it is. As these guys get bigger, they'll simply climb up those strings, and if I need to, I can move them farther apart so that they have more distance to go. But that's all that you have to do. Now, because this is a wicking tote, what I'm going to do is I'm going to water from the top with this. But then later I will come back and I will fill the bottom reservoir. I want to be able to make so many cucumber salads that Henry's sick of them. I don't know if that's possible or not. Anyway, I hope that this inspires you, and I hope you enjoyed taking a look at our crazy system that we're using. Really looking forward to these cucumbers. They produce large, straight cucumbers that are virtually seedless. It's called Tasty Jade. If you miss a cucumber, I mean, I've had cucumbers come out of the garden that were just huge. Still tender, still tasty, still not seedy. This is the second batch of cucumbers we planted this year. The first batch is out in the garden. They're a pickling cucumber. I do not make pickles with these. I don't think I have ever even tried. They're not the right texture for pickles, but they're great for fresh pickles and fresh eating. And that's one of the advantages of keeping track of what the varieties are that you're using, because I haven't found anybody else who's as good as this guy. Now, I'm sure there's something else out there, but for what I'm doing with it, this guy works great. So, Tasty Jade, the only company I know that sells them is Johnny's Select Seed. I don't get anything from Johnny's for this, unfortunately. But if Johnny's wants to send me something, I'll be good with that. Have a good week. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, because we have lots and lots and lots more going on this spring and summer and fall. When we're not growing something, we're fixing something, or building something. So, until then, bye.